All right, it is good to be back again. Past couple days I've been feeling pretty crappy, and even now I still have kind of a sore throat and pretty stuffy nose, but we're gonna go ahead with this video. Like promised, I'm gonna be taking my bare bones, straight out of the box HK MR556 and putting on all the parts, mods, and sights, scopes, red dots, etc. that I have for this. And the end goal of this video is to take it from bare bones to ready for the range, all right? And so I decided the best way to do this video is just chop it up into parts. And so we'll start with the simple stuff and then we'll get more and more complicated. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that needs to happen for this gun is it needs to get lubed up so that it's ready for the range. So we've got the rifle. I've got Lucas Oil Extreme Duty Gun Oil. I use this, I use hops, I use CLP, a bunch of different stuff. I also have gun grease. And so I'm gonna try and be pretty thorough about this. First up, obviously safe and clear. It's never had ammunition in it or anything. But with the charging handle back, like so, I'm gonna just loosen this and put 2 drops of oil right there on the charging handle, all right? Because that's a contact surface that slides in and out. Then with the charging handle still back, I'm going to actually put a couple drops of oil down through the magazine well, and that's gonna contact with the bolt carrier group as it slides forward and back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and let this bolt come forward a little bit, and I'm just gonna hit a drop where the bolt goes into the carrier and then a little bit on the face of the carrier. All right, so we've got that. Just gonna work it around a couple of times. And now normally that would be pretty adequate. And especially for a gun like this, it doesn't need a whole lot of oil. But since this is gonna be my first time ever shooting it, I'm gonna just wanna be a little extra thorough. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop my pin out so that I can partially disassemble the lower receiver. And now I'm just gonna pull back and gonna remove the bolt carrier group. And so obviously right here we have our bolt, and it has these lugs which are contact surface, and then I also have this cam, which is guided back in place as the lug rotates. And then there's also a couple of essentially notches, almost rails, on the bolt carrier, and it looks like it's actually already greased up nice, and it's looking great. So if I was gonna grease it, I'd wanna take my gun grease and just go through and hit it ever so lightly on those contact points. But it looks great, so I'm gonna go ahead and slide that back in, and here we go. Man. Okay, and that's what we have for the oil and lubrication process. Now, I just love how easy it is to work with AR-15s. Next up, we are going to be changing out the stock and the grip. So hang on a second. All right, in each hand I have a buttstock and a a pistol grip from B5 Systems. So this is the Bravo and this is the Type 23 pistol grip. And I'm gonna take off the proprietary grip and stock on the HK and throw these on. So just get the stand out of the way, and I think it's gonna be easiest to start with the buttstock. So with every AR buttstock, there's always some kind of a lever or a button or something that you push so that you can actuate it and move it to the correct setting that you want. All right, now to get it all the way off, what you have to do is you have to pull it back, and then you want to keep it so that it's not engaged, not locked in place. And I'm just gonna stick my finger in there and pull it as far as it possibly will go, and then it will slide right off. Now it's kind of pinching my finger a little bit, but it comes off pretty easily. So now we have our tube right there, and it'll be easy enough to just get this Bravo stock, and we should be able to get it on. So essentially what we're going to do is the reverse process of what I just did. And you can see inside of this nut there's a pin which gets lifted up and down to hold it in place. And now just pressing on it, it's not going to go to the maximum height. So what I'm actually going to do is just reach in with my finger and push the pin up, and now I'm going to grab hold of it. And with it pulled all the way out, I can just easily wiggle it on there. Okay, so now we've got that in place and looks perfect. That was easy enough. Now let's go to the grip. So obviously the grip still mil spec, it's hollow, and I can see right down in there, and we have a hex bolt which I'm going to go ahead and take off. So as the grip comes off, there's going to be a spring also that tends to pop out. So if you're doing this on your own, you just want to watch for that spring, make sure you don't lose it. It's not an essential piece of anything, you know, it's not going to damage your gun at all, but I just think it's there to help you know that you've set it on correctly. All right. Okay, so there we go. Our bolt came out, and it looks like they had some blue Loctite on it. And so I'm just going to move the grip to the side. And then right here is the hole that holds this spring. And this spring has a companion hole on the receiver. Again, just guides it in. So we'll keep the spring. I'm just going to brush some of this blue Loctite out of the way. And we're going to get our new grip. So again, this is the Type 23 from Bravo Systems, and it's just a little bit of a larger grip. It also has more texturing on it, it's more aggressive, and I just prefer the way that it feels. Okay, so with this we got a new bolt, we also got a locking washer. And so I found that the easiest way to do these is actually to just go ahead and put the bolt through the grip first, and then set it on, because this is really hard to do, and it gets even harder if you're trying to do it while it's on the gun. Okay, so let's see if I can just get this correct. There we go. So I've got my bolt coming through the bottom of my grip right there, if you can see it. And since the factory grip had a little Loctite on it, I'm actually going to put some on here as well. And so I just need to get a knife. And I guess this is the only knife that I have close by. And I'm just going to barely open it up, and then just put a little dribble on the threads. And this is blue Loctite, so it's medium strength, and it should come off fairly cleanly. Okay, now don't forget your spring, put that into the handle, and then guide that right on, and there we go. So we've got that started, and it looks like little bit clumsy when it comes to this kind of stuff. And as you guys can tell, I generally pay other people to do this, but I decided it's finally time where I need to learn how to do it. And okay, that feels good. So I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. And before I get it tightened all the way, just take a second look, make sure that the grip is meeting the receiver and joining it correctly. Okay. And now I'm going to just get it the rest of the way tight. And don't overdo it. You don't want to strip anything. And a little bit of tightening goes a long way, especially with thread locker. So now we've changed out our grip and our stock. So on to the next part. Okay, now that I've changed the stock and I've changed the pistol grip, I think the next step is going to be to mount the scope. And that's going to be also the most intensive part of this whole setup. And so I need to use a little bit more equipment for that. So first up, I'm going to get the stand out of the way because I'm going to be using my gun vise. And this has come in handy a lot of times for setting stuff up. It does a fantastic job of holding everything in place. And I would recommend this to everybody. All right. So what I was doing is just locking my bolt back because this block that I'm putting through the magwell is actually going to act as a receiver block. And so now my gun's going to be held in place extremely tightly. And there's a lot of equipment that goes into this. So let me grab that. So a torque wrench, that is essential. I have a level, also essential. I have a cantilever mount from Vortex. This is their sport mount. And then I have the Strike Eagle. Okay. So first up, I want to make sure that the rifle is level. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and tighten this receiver block so that it's sort of holding the gun level. And then I'm going to use these feet and adjust them around so that it's holding both ends of the rifle in place. And then let's do the same for the front of the rifle. Okay, and then just do some final leveling. So it looks like the rear is a little high. So okay. All right. And I know it's not a perfect and it's not an exact science, but the more level that it can be and just the more locked in place it can be, the easier the whole process is gonna be. So getting my big level out of the way, I have this smaller level kit with 2 levels, and so one is gonna go on a reticle and the other is gonna go on the cantilever rail system. So I think if I put it up here that should be good, and it will show the roll of the gun to make sure that it is level. And it doesn't necessarily matter that the gun is level, but what you want is you want the scope to be level with the gun itself. So you can't see on camera, but right here the bubble is to the right marker of this, which means that this is the high end. It's kind of tilted up a little bit like this. That doesn't matter, okay? As long as I match this level with what's going to be shown in the scope. So let's get our cantilever mount out, and looks like came with a tool and some parts. Lovely. And here we go. So most of these use something like a T25 bit, and that's what I have. So with my torque wrench, I'm just going to go ahead and loosen these out. And then while it's convenient, I'm going to take the scope rings completely off. And we'll get to those later, but right now it's going to be easiest to get them out of the way. Okay. Again, this is something that I normally just have them do for me at the store, but since I've accumulated so much gear and so many tools, I can just do it at home now. So it does take time, and there are lots of mistakes, and there's a high learning curve how to get good at this. But once you're good, it just adds another enjoyable part to the hobby. Okay, so I have the front ring off, and now we're going to get the rear off. This cantilever mount was the cheapest of Vortex's options. I believe it was like 170 or 150 bucks from Sportsman's where I got it. And you know, that's a pretty good deal. Like, it's not really a deal, but it's a fair enough price, because there are lots of mounts that are much more expensive. But generally those ones are going to be like quick detach, which is a really nice feature. Unfortunately, this one is not quick detach, but that's fine because I generally just put stuff on once and then leave it forever. So now with the base of the mount, I'm just going to get it loosened up enough so that I can actually throw it on. And okay, so that's how it's looking right now, and there's no way to really judge what the eye relief is going to be like unless we get our scope. So I'm just going to pop this open and just quickly pull out the scope. This scope I also got from Sportsman's. Can't remember how much it cost. It seemed like a good deal at the time. It probably was. And you know, I've always told myself that I want to get a different scope brand than Vortex. But every time that I've walked in to get a scope, Vortex has always had a just better deal. All right. So here we go. Generally, it's a good idea when you're mounting a scope to have the eyepiece about in line with your charging handle. And so it looks like this is a little too far back. So I'm just going to take the whole thing up, and so if it was sitting right there, that would be about right. And I'm just going to look through and see what it looks like. I'm going to move this forward one more and then be able to slide my scope back a little bit so it's even. And I think that that's going to be pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on just loosely because I want my scope not to fall off. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten the base. Now the order for the base doesn't necessarily matter how you tighten it, but don't tighten it all the way right now. Just get it set on there. And then you're going to want to pry it forward this direction so that when you get it fully tight, you're not going to have any issues from recoil. Alright, and it's just going to move like it's part of the gun. So these should be tightened to 30 pounds. I just did that to 15 pounds right now. So we'll get to that in a moment. And just putting 2 screws in on there. And then remember, I need to make sure that my scope is level with the gun. That way when I look through the reticle, everything's going to be plain and perfect. So it's generally recommended to remove the scope cap, and on your adjustment knob, this is where you'll set the level, and it has a nice magnet on it. So I'll come to the side here and then just adjust it so that we have the same level showing on the rifle as we do on the scope. Okay. Okay, and then it's not a perfect science, but you do want to get it so that it's at least level enough that your eye is not going to notice the difference. Alright. And you would be surprised how accurate and precise our eyesight actually is. But I think that that is going to be good enough. And so I'm just going to get these set in there. This is another area where a lot of people will use a Loctite or a thread locker of some kind. Personally, I'm not going to. We'll see if that's a good or bad decision. But, you know, I don't want anything to be too permanent on this, especially since I'm so inexperienced when it comes to this kind of stuff. I just want to give myself room to make mistakes and then be able to go back and fix it later. Okay, so I've got each of these started in just ever so slightly, and I got myself off level. So what I have to do is just correct that. Okay, and that's why it's important to have a level. It's just because things get bumped all the time. It just happens. It's just life. Now, when working on this, it's a good idea to make an even gap between the ring and the base as you're tightening. So you want it to be even on both sides and all around. So now I'm going to just tighten in the star pattern just all around. Just making sure that we're still level. one final check for being level, and it looks good. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up, and they say torque them to 18 pounds. So there we go, 18 pounds. Okay, so now I have my scope mounted. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the base is tightened up to its 30-pound spec. All right. Okay. All right, that is perfect. So I'll put that cover back on, and we'll close that on up. So we've got a perfect level on this, and that honestly wasn't too painful. That was faster than I thought it was going to be. It just takes a little bit of practice to get good at it. So that was our first scope. All right. After this, if you guys remember from my previous video, I also mentioned that I had a red dot. And the issue with the red dot was I wasn't sure if I was going to do a diving board mount off of the cantilever or if I was going to do an offset. So I was watching some other videos, I was looking through some stuff on the internet, and I decided we're going to do an offset mount, because if it's good enough for John Wick, it's got to be good enough for me. So I've got the mount right here, and then this is obviously for the Vortex Ranger or Defender XL. Okay, and let's see. I'm not sure what bit size this is, so got my tools over here. It's a star-shaped bit, and okay. It's good and loose, and this says use a T15 screw, 25 inch-pounds. So I've got that loosened up nicely, and now it's just a matter of getting it set in the correct area. And so I'm going to try to get it as close to my cantilever as I can. So it looks like that's the best position I can get it in. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down. And again, just like the cantilever, I'm pulling forward on the base. That way it's butting up against the rail right here, so I'm pushing it in. And that's just going to help it not get moved with recoil. And then okay. Then it said 25 pounds. So let's see what we got. Perfect. Alright, so now that we've got that mounted, just going to pop out the red dot and there's anything else in here that I need. So this red dot does come with a base plate, which can go on Delta Point Pro style mounts. And it has screws and stuff that already are there for it. So looks like this also is a pick mount. Perfect. So I'm going to take the base plate out and get this thrown together. And I have never done this before, so this will take a little bit of learning to know exactly what to do. Hello. Just taking off stickers. Okay. That's interesting. I'm not really seeing. Okay, now I'm starting to get a dot that can show up a little bit. So I know you guys can't see it, but I've got a dot, which is good news. And now we'll mount this. And if I go like this, will I be able to reach? That'll be a problem. All right. Well, this base plate, I could have it facing either way, but it lines up imperfectly this direction, and so I'm gonna make sure that it's lined up this way. The only problem is this T star screw, I won't be able to get at it from this direction, so I'm actually gonna have to take off the offset mount, put this on, then put the offset on the gun. All right, so figured out what I need to do. So I decided to use the M4 screws that are 0.7 threads, or actually this is just the M4 screw, okay, and it is 11 millimeters in length. So I've got that going in, and then I just use a T10 sized bit to tighten them in. And these screws already came with some blue thread locker on them, which is good, and you can feel it going in nicely. And then it sounds like they should be tightened to 15 pounds. So that's 2015. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So if you guys remember, I have to take off my offset mount, put the red dot on, and then be able to deal with this. So here we go. And okay, excellent. So now I've got that tightened down to 15 pounds, and let's see if this will go ahead and fit. Oh, lovely. So now I'm going to work this on, and I'm just going to go a little bit heavier. We'll go to 20 pounds on this. Okay, that was a lot of work, and I'll be cutting most of that out. And we're back. All right, so now that I have my LPVO and my red dot mounted, new stock, new grip, we're on to kind of the final parts. Also, I think what is going to be the hardest and most critical, okay? So if this part fails, it could fail catastrophically, and I'm talking obviously about the suppressor. So the suppressor that I have is the Huxwrx Flow, and this is the 7.62 can. I chose that for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not the smartest, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to put this on, you know, other guns like an AR-10, and that's true. I will be able to do that. I can even put that on my 308 and my 7mm, you know, because those are all 30 caliber size guns. But I don't know, if I could go back in time, stop myself a few months ago, I probably would have gone for the 5.56 can. This one is a little bit longer, whereas the 5.56 can is shorter by about 2, maybe even 3 inches. But still great looking. I went for black. I just thought, you know, it's simple and clean. And with this can comes the quick detach muzzle device, but this is for a 7.62 rifle. And so I decided to get the appropriate flash hider for the 5.56. And so I have that right here. Okay. And so I'm just going to go ahead, pop this out, and here it is. All right, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the first order of business is I need to get this A2 flash hider off. So I've got a wrench, and I'm hoping that I can do this without scratching anything up. And okay, I might have already loosened it a little bit off of camera, but I'm going to screw this straight off and expose our threads. Definitely want to hang on to that. And so right here we have our quick detach 5.56 flash hider. It's a great look. It just looks cool. Not super effective, but anyhow, that's besides the point. What I have to do here is put some thread locker on these threads, screw it on appropriately, and it says get it to about 33 foot-pounds. All right, and it says that's roughly 20 degrees after hand tight. So we'll see about that. I'm just going to throw some thread locker on, and okay. Here we go. Oddly enough, this did not include any locking washers or anything like that. I know that that is pretty common for most muzzle devices to include something like that. So we went hand tight, and this is not even going to move 20 degrees. Are you kidding me? There's no way. I'm just going to call that good. All right. And we'll see if it gets me in trouble and blows up in my face or not at the range. Then the next step is simple enough. Just take the muzzle device, the suppressor, and thread that on. And its threads are going to be going in a totally different direction. So I really do think that that is pretty good. And once that's installed, I have an alignment rod. And the alignment rod is a step that some people honestly skip, but I don't know why. Because here's the truth is, it's easy for a suppressor to be out of alignment. What that means is this is essentially just taking the trajectory of the bullet as it exits the barrel and making sure that it is going to be straight in line with the suppressor, because if the suppressor is somehow out of line, the bullet could hit one of the baffles of the suppressor in its flight path. And there's whole videos explaining this that are really interesting, but basically inside a suppressor there's these fins or baffles that are kind of shaving off some air. If you guys know about like veneer flow and fluid dynamics. Anyway, they shave off a little bit of air, moving it to low pressure areas, slowing it down, just redirecting it so you don't get the loud sound and the bright flash. Anyhow, if the bullet hits one of those baffles, all that pressure is just going to explode out the side, and it can cause all sorts of damage to your gun, to your barrel, not to mention you. So with the alignment rod, I've got that set into the barrel, and just making sure that it is an even distance from each side of the front of the suppressor. And we are perfectly in the center. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull that out, and we are almost completely done. I've got the almost fully set up rifle, and there's just one more thing that I have planned for it today, and that is to put a vertical grip on the handguard. So again, I just decided to stay loyal with the B5 systems, and this is their vertical M-lock grip. So I'm going to pop this open and let's get the sucker out. Okay, yeah, we're just going to send it. So everybody's going to have kind of a different placement for where they want the vertical grip to be. So I'm just going to try and optimize it, kind of guess what I'm going to like the most. Man, that cap sucks. All right. So all right. So I'm thinking I'm going to put it right below the gas block. All right. And so that seems fair enough. So it's going to go right there. So with these, they have a hex size for them. It looks like it is 1/8. And then there's the little M-lock blocks that are going to fit into our slot. And I honestly don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. So this is going to be a learning experience for sure. Okay, so I decided the way to go about this is to take a bolt, put it through the grip, and then put this, essentially a little bracket, and get it started on the bolt. And then put it perpendicular so that it can fit through the M-lock slots. And then as I drop it down on, then I have access to the bolts, and then I can reach through with my finger and hold that in place as I'm tightening. Only problem is I can't quite reach it. So all right. I've never had anything with M-lock before, and so this really is a learning experience for me. But that's why I do this kind of stuff, so that you guys don't have to go through the whole process of struggling to figure it out. Okay. That looks just about perfect. See if I can get that any tighter without stripping it. And there we have it. Fully set up MR556, and this thing looks wicked sweet. Like, oh man, That is unbelievable. Like, oh, that's crazy. I cannot believe how good this thing was, and it was a lot of work. Obviously this is a crummy video, but you know, I try my best, okay? I'm just having a real fun time with this. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys, as you saw me, you know, struggle many times through this whole process, from the stock all the way to the suppressor. It takes a little bit of doing, and man, the end result though, oh, that's awesome. All right, that's enough for this video. If you guys liked it, hit that like button. If you didn't like it, leave a comment, tell me what I did wrong, what I can do better. As always, please subscribe, it helps me out a lot, and I will see you guys in the next video.